A scientist set out to prove that love doesn't exist, that what we feel for our own mother is nothing more than a reflex. So he built two artificial mothers. One was made of bare wire, but it gave milk. The other was soft, warm to the touch, but gave nothing. The baby monkeys had to choose, and they chose to go hungry. They clung to the soft mother that couldn't feed them. They pulled away only for a moment to drink milk from the wire one and rush straight back into the warmth. They chose closeness over food. And this was only the beginning of an experiment meant to uncover what attachment truly is, one that would go far further than anyone intended. In the 1950s, science held a belief that sounds absurd today. Many psychologists thought a child loves its mother for one reason only, because she feeds it. That love was just an association. Mother equals food, food equals survival. Nothing more. Affection was supposed to be a mere byproduct of hunger. Parents were told back then not to hold their children too often. That tenderness spoils them. That too much closeness would raise a weak, dependent person. These weren't fringe opinions. This was the official scientific advice of the time. An American psychologist, Harlow, thought this was nonsense, and he decided to prove it in a laboratory. For his research, he chose rhesus monkeys. They're surprisingly close to us. We share most of our genes with them, and their infants develop much like human babies, only faster. What Harlow saw in the monkeys was meant to say something about us. He took the baby monkeys from their real mothers right after birth. In their place, he gave them two surrogate mothers he had built himself. The first was a bare wire frame with a simple head and a bottle of milk. It fed them, but it was hard and cold. The second had the same shape, but it was wrapped in soft, spongy cloth, pleasant to touch. It gave no milk. It offered nothing but softness. If the old theory were true, the monkeys should have loved the wire mother. It was the one that gave food. It was the one that meant survival. The opposite happened. The babies spent almost all their time clinging to the soft mother. For most of the day, they hung from her, buried in the cloth. They went to the wire, one only, when hunger became unbearable, drank as fast as they could, and hurried back. They treated the soft mother as a safe harbor. When something frightening was let into the cage, like a loud, mechanical drumming toy, the monkey didn't run to the one that fed it. It ran to the soft one. It pressed its whole body against her, and only once calm did it dare to glance at the threat. Harlow had his proof. The bond didn't come from food. It came from touch, from warmth, from the very sense of safety that a close body provides. He called it the need for contact comfort. Love was real, and it was a need as basic as hunger itself. And if Harlow had stopped here, we would remember him as the man who scientifically proved that tenderness is essential, that a child must be held, that closeness isn't a luxury, but a foundation. But he didn't stop, because a question came up that pulled the whole study into a far darker place. If the absence of a mother does so much harm, then how much? What actually happens to a creature deprived of all closeness? And here the experiment stopped being a story about a soft mother and became something hard to speak about calmly. Harlow began raising some of the monkeys in complete isolation, alone in closed boxes with no mother, no siblings, no contact with another living being, some for 3 months, others for half a year, and some for the entire first year of their lives. When they were finally let in among other monkeys, it was already too late. They couldn't play, they couldn't communicate, they didn't understand any of the signals monkeys use to calm one another. They sat curled up in a corner, rocking back and forth for hours. Some bit their own bodies. They were physically healthy, well-fed, safe, and yet something in them had been broken beyond repair. Harlow called one of these devices the pit of despair. It was a closed, empty box the monkey couldn't escape from or see out of. After a few days inside, even an animal that had developed normally before would sink into a state resembling deep depression. It stopped moving. It lost interest in everything. And here we come to the hardest part of this story, the part many would rather skip. The most disturbing thing was what happened later to the females raised in isolation. When some of them became mothers, they had no idea what being a mother meant. They had never experienced it. They showed their babies no tenderness. They ignored them, pushed them away, and some of them harmed their own young. Not out of cruelty. There simply was nothing inside them to give. No one had ever put it there. Emptiness gave birth to emptiness. The absence of love could be inherited. Harlow's results came at an enormous cost and stirred a storm that continues to this day. For many people, these experiments were simply cruel. The suffering of feeling intelligent animals inflicted on purpose to prove something that, for many mothers, had always been obvious. The animal rights movement was born in large part as a reaction to what happened in Harlow's laboratory. And yet it's hard to pretend this knowledge changed nothing. Because at that very time, in orphanages and hospitals around the world, children were still being treated according to the old theory. Fed, washed, in clean sheets, but barely touched. No one picked them up unless they had to. And those children withered. They fell ill for no reason, they stopped growing, and some of them died. Even though they had everything the science of the time said they needed, they lacked one single thing no one thought was important: touch. Harlow's work, as brutal as it was, gave this hard, undeniable proof. It showed, in black and white, that the closeness of another body is not a luxury, that it's a condition of survival, that you can feed a child to the full and still let it die from a lack of tenderness. This reversed the way we care for children. Today we know a newborn must be held. That skin-to-skin contact saves premature babies. That in the first years of life, closeness literally builds the brain. The advice our grandparents followed was thrown out long ago. And it happened in large part because of the suffering that played out in those cages. So a question remains, one each of us must answer alone. Was it right to inflict such suffering to save countless other beings from a suffering that is quieter, but just as real? Harlow only wanted to prove that love exists. He succeeded all too well. He showed that it's so powerful that its absence can break a living being forever, and that we pass it on only when someone first gave it to us. Because love is not a reward for being fed. It's not a reflex, nor a side effect of hunger. It's what we choose, even when we're starving. Just like those monkeys who chose to curl into soft warmth rather than feed at the cold wire.